Um, I was watching the movie Hereafter. Has anybody ever seen the movie Hereafter? It's a very interesting movie dealing with talking about is there life after death, other things beyond this here and now. And one of the characters, played by Matt Damon, is a child. He had a near-death experience, and coming out of that, he's able to sometimes see things in other people's lives. Right? But it's become a very difficult thing for him because the things people think they want to see are not always the things that they get to hear. And in the movie, he starts seeing this girl that he's taking a cooking class, and they kind of connect, and she comes over, they're going to make dinner together. It's kind of like their first date. And his brother's left a message on the phone that kind of reveals this thing. And this girl asks him about it, and he says, we don't want to go there. She says, no, can you just tell me something about me? She said, I really don't think you want to do this, but she insists. So he sits down with her, and he holds her hand, and he gets this impression, and he shares with her. And he tells her, it's her father, and what he wants is your forgiveness. She's like, well, I don't get it. What does he want forgiveness for? And he said, it's for something that he did to you a long time ago. And you look at her face, and you realize that this is something very deep and very powerful that's happened to her, and very painful, and she begins to cry. And she quickly gets up, and she said, let's just pretend this never happened. She leaves, and he never sees her again. It's part of the reason he didn't want to share is because he knew that this has happened before, that people are hoping that, like they might hear something kind of cool. And really what his gift is to help them to see the difficult things in their life that need healing, and the relational things that they need to deal with others, and the places that we often don't want to go. Right? And I remember, and you're going to have to forgive my language in this story, but it's a real story. I have a friend who was she was an organizer with an organization like what we have at Job up in Green Bay. And she was about my age, and she had 2 young girls. She was married, and her husband contracted this illness. It was long and drawn out and very painful, and he died from this. And it was a very difficult time for her. And we were at a gathering, we were like 4 of us who were kind of close to sharing at this table, and she was talking about this, and she said, afterwards she was talking with the head of our this organization that Job is part of, and hers was called Beloit Foundation, and the director, his name is Greg Beloit, and she said Greg was talking about this, they were sharing about this, and she said, he said something that was very helpful to me. He said, there's one nice thing about going through something as difficult as this. He said, your bullshit meter is very low. Yeah. All right? And I was talking about, when Jesus was talking about that being trapped, some of the games we play, that so much of the time we play games so that we don't deal with real things in our lives. We avoid them. Unlike the movie, and the scene in the movie, she didn't want to deal with the real thing, and she had to leave. She didn't want to connect anymore because then she'd have to deal with that. She didn't want to go there. And I think a lot of what we do by creating this dualism is we avoid dealing with real things. We put God in the spiritual realm, where it's just ideals and internal things, and it's not about real things going on in real life around us. Right? And one of the things that we've done when we talk about the Sermon on the Mount is we've done the same thing. And I want to read this passage from Matthew 5:21. He says, Jesus is saying, you've heard that it was said to the people long ago, you shall not murder, and anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. But I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment. And again, anyone who says to a brother or sister, Raka, or you fool, Raka, I forget what Raka is, forgive me. And I just looked that up. It's in the next one we'll see. Is answerable to the Sanhedrin, or the council. And anyone who says you fool will be in danger of the fire of hell. Therefore, if you are offering your gift at the altar and there remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First go and be reconciled to the person, then come and offer your gift. Settle matters quickly with your adversary who's taking you to court. Do it while you are still together on the way, for your adversary may hand you over to the judge, and the judge may hand you over to the officer, and you may be thrown into prison. Truly I tell you, you will not get out until you pay the last penny. All right, now, go ahead and click the next one. Traditionally, this is the way we've read these passages from the Sermon on the Mount. It says, Jesus is first talking about what we call a traditional righteousness. This is what people have heard that was said. You've heard it was said to those of ancient times, you shall not kill. Now this is interesting. The passage we just had before said murder. It's another way we like to, get away as well. Just don't murder. It's there's places where you can kill. Say no, you shall not kill. And anyone who kills shall be liable to judgment. All right? So that's what you were told. Now, so what's the one thing you really don't want to do?
Murder.
Right, you don't want to murder. You don't want to kill somebody. All right, that's the level. That's when you've really gone bad. All right. But Jesus says, this is Jesus' teaching. This is what the traditional way of interpreting this. Jesus says, "But I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister will be liable to judgment. Whoever insults his brother or sister will be liable to the council. And anyone who says you fool will be in danger of the fire of hell." And then it gives illustrations to lift that up about, if you're offering your gift or make friends quickly with your accuser. So now the thing is, what is this saying we're supposed to do? Right? It's not, right? Not only not kill, we're not supposed to what? Don't hold a grudge. Don't get angry. Don't even say, "You fool," right? "You idiot." Yeah?
Okay, it says not to kill, but what if it's self-defense?
Oh, well, that's another good one. So, but maybe a topic for another day. That's a good, maybe a good one to talk about afterwards. So, there are those issues, but I think what Jesus is getting is, why is it people kill?
Angry.
Out of anger. He said, look, the second thing is anger. And he said, if you're angry with a brother or sister, you're liable to judgment. If you insult them, you have to go before the council. He said, if you just say "you fool," you might be going to hell. And who here has ever said something like "you fool" to somebody else? Who here has ever been angry with somebody else? So where are we all going if we're there? Right. All right. This is the traditional teaching of this is to say, Jesus is saying, it's not just killing someone, not just being angry, but just saying "you fool," or even just being angry. That's really bad. So you need to stop being angry. Okay. Anyone ever try to stop being angry? You never get angry? All right. You tried it. How many have actually succeeded? Anybody? Once. Right.
I'm being honest.
No, I understand. I think we do, but if our whole life had to be never getting angry, never saying "you're a fool," right? So we're left with a place, and it's not terribly unhelpful. It's saying, you know what, we can't do that, so we have to trust that God is forgiving, right? And so we just rest that God is going to forgive me if I mess up. And that's where we kind of go with it. So I don't have to deal with the anger stuff because there's no way to get to where Jesus wants me to get. All right? Now, go to the next one. The reality is that's not what it's saying, all right? It starts with this, the traditional righteousness. You've heard it was said of those of ancient time, "You shall not kill, and anyone who kills shall be liable to judgment." All right? Jesus is taking what people did kind of to create this dualism of something you do, saying, it's really only about killing somebody. The whole anger thing you don't have to worry about. And Jesus is saying, no, anger is very important. We need to deal with this issue of anger. He says, and even saying "you fool," that just comes from the same place. All right? It's the same place. But this is not saying don't be angry. They point out, in the Greek, there are no imperatives. An imperative is the command saying, "you better do this." Right? It's not saying don't be angry. In fact, what it's saying is, these are the things that we do. This is, these vicious cycles we get caught up in. All right? You get angry at someone. You do something to them. What happens? Yeah. They get angry, they do it back. So you do what? You get back at them, right? You got the Hatfields and McCoys. It just goes on and on, and like Romeo and Juliet. It's just this vicious cycle, right? And Jesus is saying, look, we all get caught in these things, and it's part of life. We will get angry. In fact, Jesus got angry, so it's not saying don't get angry. Read the Bible more than once. Jesus was angry, right? What he's saying is, this is what you need to do. It's not just an ideal of thinking like, let's not be angry. I'm trying to be at peace. It's saying, look, when that happens, when you mess up, this is what you do about it. Says, if you're offering your gift at the altar, so if you're going before God to give your gift to God, thanks to God, and you remember that your brother or sister has something against you, if you've done something, and they're upset with you, he said, stop right there. Stop, and go, says, leave. Just leave your gift there. Leave it. So it's an action word, leave it. And go. Go and be reconciled to your brother or sister. Then offer your gift. So, make friends quickly with your accuser. All right. How many of us have had an issue with someone else where we had to go and sit down and talk it out, right? Right? How many of you had a situation where you were able to reconcile with that person? Right? Yeah. Now, sometimes they're not open to it. In fact, in another passage, Jesus says, look, you might go to them once, if something happens, and you go to them, and they don't listen, he says, now, take somebody else and go with you. And if that doesn't work, take your group, You know, and he says, you know, and you take the whole church and they don't want to listen. He says, then you need to treat them like a tax collector or sinner. How did Jesus treat tax collectors and sinners? Those are the people he ate dinner with. So you need to always be open to seeking reconciliation, to bring healing. You know. Now, like Rob Bell points this out in one of his videos on forgiveness. He says, we need to also be aware there are some situations, like if you're in an abusive situation, like we're talking about the issue of child abuse, there are some places that are just unhealthy that you need to leave. Forgiveness doesn't necessarily mean you put yourself back in that place, but you need to do things to seek reconciliation whenever we can. Right? And this is what he says, it's a practice. Right? And I can remember when I was in college, a friend of mine came to me and he said, his father had died, and he said, you weren't really there for me, and he wanted to know why. And when we talked, I realized my father had died when I was very young too, and I realized it was just such a painful thing that it was too painful for me to enter into at the time. And I was sitting down and talking. It was very helpful for both of us, that he understood, why was I struggled so hard with that, for me to realize that was still a painful thing. And I remember a number of years later when I was in ministry training in a hospital, there were two kids whose father was dying. And they were the age of my sister and I at the time my father had died. And I was able to be there to walk through with their mom and their family as they went through this. Because of that process. And that situation with my friend had helped me to see that, to see, this issue of my life. But we also know there are times when healing is a hard thing. Like, I'm not going to share this full story, but I remember, sharing the story of the cinnamon rolls, about the lady making cinnamon rolls, and the other woman who complained about her doing that, and for years they never talked, until they were able to sit down with the pastor and bring healing. But so often we carry these things for so long, and Jesus is saying, look, it's not just an ideal of saying, in my heart I forgive. You really need to seek to bring healing. And and I think as we're sitting here right now, whatever age we are, whatever table is we're sitting here, probably each one of us here has at least one situation in our lives. It could be recent, it could be something from long ago where there's still this brokenness because there hasn't been this healing. And what Jesus is saying is the way of the kingdom is not just forgiving in our heart, but saying, we need to go to those people and try and bring some healing if we can. And it may be that they're not open to that, and that's okay, but we need to always be open to ourselves, to seek to bring that about. I'm going to invite you to, right now, just take a moment and have you close your eyes. And I want you to think about who that person might be in your journey. And ask God maybe in this week to show you someplace where you need to go to bring that healing and to bring the restoration of relationship, or at least to seek it out, to seek to walk the way of Jesus. And whatever that might be, I want to ask that God would help you with that. So the Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Also with you. Thank you. Let's pray. God, hear our hearts right now. Each one of us has brokenness in relation to things that have pained us, and we ask that you would help us in this to find a place of healing. That you would help us to do what is needed to restore relationship, and to be a community that is about restore relationship. We ask that you might hear our hearts now, that you might take these things, and that you might bring this healing about through your presence and through our actions in doing what you invite us to do. We ask that you would do this in Jesus' name. And all God's people said.
Amen.
Amen.